Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough, indeed, to be doing it too. I'm Bushka, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is the start of a multi-video series on close quarters combat, or CQC. In it, we're going to explore the very foundational building stones of good close quarters combat game mechanics, and maybe how they combine together into a total system that allows you to be a better player overall. Now, there are going to be a lot of different bits and pieces going on here, and it's not going to be the same for absolutely everyone. And I obviously don't think that I'm the greatest player in the world, but what I am is quite an analytical grub who's a little bit OCD about the way they go about things, even in video games, especially in video games, if we're being honest. And that means that what I want to do is break it down, give it to you on a silver platter, especially if you're a new player. I want to help the humans. I want to make the learning curve a little bit less like this and a little more like an even flow. And we'll see how we go. So let's get on with it. Episode 1 of the Close Quarters Combat Masterclass. We'll come up with something better. We're going to talk about some really important stuff. Obvious things like changing angles that I have done a lot of videos on. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the peaker's advantage, which I've done a desync video on its own, but all these things work together. I want to talk about recoil control and the ins and the outs of that. And this is what I mean. There's things going on all through CQC that are... It's holistic. They all matter. Weapon selection. There's so many different levels to this. The different sounds you can hear, the different times you should be using different weapons. And I want to take a moment though to talk about the absolute basics that you need to understand before you go any further forward. And those are the numbers, the 3 keys to locating targets. You're going to talk about your eyes, your ears, and the actual minimap. The things that you need to understand here are footsteps pop on the minimap 20 meters away. You can hear someone's footsteps about 48 to 50 meters away, which is fairly obvious. I mean, if you've been playing for any length of time. And crawling, for instance, can be heard at 12 meters. These are different distances. But that allows you to pinpoint locations. So if you can hear footsteps, you turn around and face them and you can't see them, you know they're between 20 and 50 meters away. Once the footsteps pop, you know they're coming towards you, and they have to be like in the corner of this building because you're quartering off the target and you can't see them. And that's how a lot of people work, like analytically, when they play close quarters combat. It starts off as thinking about the numbers, and then it just becomes automatic. Like anything, like shooting a basketball or riding a surfboard, hitting a golf ball, playing guitar. You build that muscle memory up here, and then it just turns on every time it gets, the alarm goes off, footsteps, turn around, check it out, figure out exactly where they were, and go for it. Now, there's so many mechanical parts to this, but I want to break before we go anywhere through that and talk about weapon selection, okay? Weapon selection is really, really important. And it ties in with peaker's advantage. So I'm going to do a little bit of a chat about those two things, and we'll see how we go for time. And if I don't get any further, then we'll just do it in part 2, part 3, part 4, however many parts that are required in the series, because this is something that is absolutely key. There is a Discord server that I run. There's over 10,000 people on it now, and on that Discord server there is a place called Bushka's Spreadsheets, and there is a spreadsheet that I did ages ago, and then TurneyNet has been tinkering with it for me ever since, and he's prettied it up and made it look good. Basically, it tells you how long it takes to clear a level 2 vest with PUBG mobile weapons, not PC. People that tell you PC numbers are wrong, and the PC and the mobile game mechanics are similar, but absolutely there are so many huge differences. There are certain weapons that just clear a target faster and pay for it in other ways. I love the M416, and I use it a lot this season, particularly because Erangel has been so prevalent. And weapon selection means that you've got a primary and a secondary weapon. You can run 2 ARs on a switch, one like an M4 for medium and long range, and one like a barrel or an AKM for close range. You can run a Vector. I run a Vector on Sanic all the time. The biggest key here is you need to understand how long each weapon takes to kill and the pros and the cons of it. I find the M4 at the moment to be absolutely broken with the sprays. The sprays I'm getting off on an M4 these days just seem to be so precise and clean and even. And even with the barrel. So the thing is, you want to go for the weapon that kills quickest, because close quarters combat is about close quarters. You're not looking for a weapon really that does this very well. That's great, but I mean, obviously an M416 is great in close quarters combat if you use it properly. And what I'm talking about here is the tiny little differences. So you need to understand both how recoil works and all that kind of stuff, and I'll get into that later. We're going to do a whole subject on recoil, sensitivity settings, different equipment, but all this stuff is out there and I'm condensing it down. I've got all this stuff on the channel already. There is a 2018 or 2019 grip guide which has all the tests and is just sitting there in the most requested videos channel. There is a perfect sensitivity video out there that I did, which has 170, nearly 200,000 views on it. And once you get those things right, once you understand the equipment that you need to use, you understand the sensitivity settings you need to have to absolutely nail it, then you're going to be more effective in close quarters. And they're the mechanical things you can look after. The sounds, you understand the numbers on those sounds, the speed the weapons kill at, and the way to set up your sensitivity and recoil and everything. And that's very, very important. Guns like the S12K are huge because the S12K is amazing at negating the peakers, negating desync. Desync happens when you are further away from the server than your enemy, and basically your ping takes longer to hit the server and come back. That means that the enemy is basically giving the server information faster than you are. So when you fire, you think you're hitting the guy 6 times and you've already been hit 6 times by that guy. But because your ping is higher, then, or you have a packet loss issue, then you just don't get the kill. The reason a gun like the S12K works really, really well with desync is that you're dying, and the server then receives one packet from you, and it's an S12K packet, and it's a single shot, and that is cleared. It's done. And it just negates everything else the other player's done. Because the S12K, for lack of a better word, can one-shot kill targets. And that's really important. That allows you to do all kinds of nasty things. So if I had to run it in order of preference for me, for my up close and personal guns, it's going to be barrel and AKM and Vector, and maybe an Uzi in there in certain situations. But late game, up close and personal, I want to be running a barrel or an AKM more often than not, unless I'm on Sanok where I'll run a Vector. And then on your Switch, you might run an M416, you might run a Kar 98. But if you're going to run a bolt action sniper rifle and you're on Erangel, you're going to get a whole lot of engagements where you need mid-range firepower. And AKs and barrels are not as good at that as an M416. So you will see oftentimes you have to compromise with this. Look at the sprays on this thing. I mean, red dot on an M4 is amazing. You also want to get very good at quick shot ADSing. And if you want to get that peaker's advantage on desync, what you need to be doing is coming out, like if you watch the way I play this, I'll poke a lot of corners with my head. And that's because as you come around the corner, you don't appear on the player's screen until your packet hits the server, and then his packet gets sent back to him. Right? So that is, if you are leaning around a corner, you get an inherent advantage on desync. So we've covered off on the numbers there. We've talked about weapons selection. You need to be running a gun that is very, very good at up close and personal front-loaded damage, like an S12K at times is great early days. But if you're in a situation like this, you can see the M4 at that range. It's really, really important to nail it. The other thing you need to be understanding here is that there are no guarantees in this. Like, if you get hit in the head and the other guy only gets hit in the body, then you're going to come second because a headshot just does way more damage. But you need to understand these numbers if you want to go to the next level. And that spreadsheet is really important. You should go check it out. It lists all the guns, the numbers, the damage, the time to kill, the rate of fire. And fast firing SMGs are excellent for CQC, but there is a catch here. If you are firing really quickly and getting high kills, it can take a lot of kills to clear a target with a Vector or an Uzi. You have more kills in a clip with a AKM Beryl M416 AR because they just have higher base damage. So when you're up against multiple targets, you don't have to go through a reload. You can actually clear more damage with an AKM or one of those guns than you can with an Uzi, which has 25 in the clip and takes like 6 or 7 rounds to clear a target. It just fires incredibly fast. All these numbers mean that you need to adjust situationally. If you are playing solo squads, then you're probably going to want to run an AR or have an AR and an SMG on a switch for CQC. If you're running solos, you can get away with a Vector or an Uzi all the time because you're only ever going to run up against one target. You don't have to worry about clearing the knock. These are things that you need to start factoring in, and CQC is far more complex and nuanced than people give it credit for. And the reason why I'm only really doing this in FPP is because, if I'm honest, you can just make it up as you go along in TPP. Like, I'm happy for people to be upset with me, but TPP is not nearly as hard to play close quarters combat as it is to do with FPP. TPP, you hit a wall, you look, you can see everything around you, you wait for someone to leave cover, you strafe out, you've got a peeker's advantage, you hit them, you pull back. It's like everything favors the guy who is passive. Everything. I mean, I'm happy for you to find that offensive, but please don't tell me that it's not true, because TPP is built around defensive gameplay. If you want to play CQC hard and with a certain degree of adrenaline and absolute horror as you don't know what's going on, and you've got to break it all down based on minimap, ears, eyes, game mechanics, knowledge, that kind of stuff, then FPP is where it's at. And you should be playing more FPP. It'll make you a better player. It'll make you rely less on the third-party mechanic, which is just like sitting behind a wall completely invisible and seeing everything in front of you. And if you do that and then go and play TPP, you will find you're just a better player. I'm Bushka. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. Look out for episode 2, which will be coming to a record store near you real soon. And as always, remember to follow up on the Instagram, Discord, socials, all that kind of stuff, and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.